Hello everyone, hoot hoot everyone, it's me, Ethan, that there Turbo Owl, and today I'm here with another episode of this here Tabletop Tall Tales, once again specifically discussing Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition. And today, I'm going to be avoiding the Tzimisce clan video that I've been putting off making now for however long it's been since my last video. I think 3 months, plus however long it was between that video and the one before it. I keep getting distracted by things. Genuinely, I was planning to myself, first of all, I was saying, okay, Ethan, you'll make the Tzimisce clan video once you've got, hang on, I need to look at the preview so I'm pointing it, that poster, which you can't see all of it, but that is the Tzimisce clan book cover, I believe, or at least it's art of a Tzimisce. I think it might be supposed to be Dracula. Like Vlad Tepes, specifically, who I think is a Tzimisce in the lore. And then I got that, but then I was on the way to getting this fella, my Malkavian clan symbol tattoo. Went for the V20, the old version, not the V5 version, obviously. And then, once I got that, I just got distracted and never got round to it. Before we actually start, I will say a couple of things that may be of interest to you if you are watching this at the time of upload. The main one being that, the one that is most specifically related to the current time of upload, is that if you are one of the peculiar people, you're not peculiar in and of yourself, it just surprises me that these people exist, who only watches Tabletop Tall Tales and doesn't watch my Twitch, or my, well, it used to be a Let's Play channel, but now the YouTube channel that has effectively just become where I upload my Twitch VODs, Lazy Turbo Owl. The Twitch is that Turbo Owl. It may be of interest to you to know that I've recently been streaming Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, the Final Nights mod, playing as the followers of Set, and every single stream has basically devolved into me talking about a Vampire the Masquerade game I'm currently in, and also lengthy lore discussions about Vampire the Masquerade. So, if you're watching these kind of things, these videos on Tabletop Tall Tales, but you don't already watch me on Twitch, I mean, that's practically the best you're gonna get from my Twitch stuff. I'm also planning on covering other Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines mods, so that will likely come up. I've also, you will have noticed, changed the name of the channel to Turbo Owl's Tabletop Tall Tales, trying to keep the brand going. And also, I have news. This is more just for me, but news that's of interest to me. I am finally able to at least vaguely justify the incredible amount of unearned confidence with which I discuss Vampire the Masquerade V20. Because some of you may have been under the impression that I have ever run a game of Vampire the Masquerade V20. Until very recently, this was not the case. I am, however, currently running my own game of Vampire the Masquerade V20. I'd only been a player up to about a month ago, when I got my hands on a print-on-demand copy of the core rules of Vampire the Masquerade V20, and then I suddenly became possessed with an urge to run the game, and unlike my vague notions of running some D&D 5e games before, where I've been vaguely talking about running a game for about a year, I got this 1 week later and started a campaign, so there we go. I'm actually looking to replace this in the near future, because this is it's a nice print, but it's the black and white copy from Drive-Thru RPG, and I have since acquired other books from their print-on-demand V20, the series of books they offer for print-on-demand for Vampire the Masquerade V20 at standard colour, which are quite nice. It is my intention to, in the near future, have acquired standard colour copies of basically every book in the Vampire the Masquerade V20 series of releases, at least ones that weren't just like anthologies of stories, including 2 books which I found out just don't have equivalents for Vampire the Masquerade V20, that being Kindred of the East, that's the Kuei Jin books, and I think it's Kindred, I want to say it's Kindred of the Ebony Kingdom, which covers the African bloodlines. They just don't really get touched upon much. I think like there's some of them. There's like, I think maybe a couple of them are written as Bloodlines in this book, and I think like 1 or 2 are in the Dark Ages book as well. But yeah, I'm planning on getting all of them. I've got a few now. It's gonna cost me $300 to get all of them. I do have a link to Patreon in the description if anyone wants to help me get my collection quicker. But yeah, I'm quite happy. I'll tell you this, though. There is actually now a specific time on when I will do the Tzimisce clan video. That time being when I finish reading, Lore of the Clans. Which, just in case you guys see, very nice colour print. I believe I'm currently reading through the Ravnos and having a very bad time, because, say it with me, I hate the Ravnos. Yeah, I've got lore. Currently, my collection is Lore of the Clans, Lore of the Bloodlines, Ghouls and Revenants, and Vampire Dark Ages core rules. Yeah, I am planning on getting all of them eventually, because I just fucking love Vampire the Masquerade V20 so much. It's my favourite system. Okay, that's 5 minutes of filler in what was supposed to be a short video. Today, we are going to be talking about, as the name of the video suggests, we're going to be talking about clans/bloodlines that I do not think you should ever let people play. Now, I want to make it clear, though I did just say clans and bloodlines you should never let people play, it's more me discussing clans and bloodlines that I either think were basically designed as NPC or enemy characters rather than things that the players should really be playing, and just some bloodlines and clans I think it's just a bad idea to let a standard VTM game have. And this is going to involve some hypocrisy because I have played at least one of these and talked about it at length. You know, any group with a good enough storyteller and good enough players, and especially with enough trust between the storyteller and the players, you can generally make almost anything work in that situation. This is just for your standard V20 game. These are things I think should be off the table. Okay, let's go down my list here in no particular order. I have notes again. I have to keep notes. Okay. Number one, and this is the one, actually, we're starting with my hypocrisy. Number one, the Tzimisce. The Tzimisce are an example of a clan which I do not think was designed to be made playable to players. In fact, weirdly, though I am loath to bring up Vampire the Masquerade V5, I don't hate it that much, it just didn't immediately grab me. I'm gonna stick with V20, but if you like V5, whatever, you do you. There's some interesting things in V5. In fact, actually, in my campaign, I've stolen some of the lore updates from V5 and backported them into V20. For example, the followers of Set call themselves the Ministry, and I've just taken the La Sombra clan weakness, where instead of being not in mirrors, instead of not appearing in mirrors, they appear as like horrible shadowy shapes, and on like recordings they're like horrible glitchy things, because that just seems more interesting. V5 has some interesting things. Anyway, the Tzimisce are a prime example of a clan which I do not think was ever intended to be used by the players, and there are multiple reasons for that. Number one, very big one, they are Sabbat, and quite frankly, while I know there are books and rules for playing as the Sabbat, the Sabbat have always just struck me as something you shouldn't play as. In fact, if memory serves, I don't think the Tzimisce or the Sabbat are something you get options to play as in standard V5, which is why I brought up V5. I'd forgotten why I'd mentioned it, but yes, that's one of the things that I'm gonna like point at is V5. It's not a basic part of V5 being the Sabbat or the Tzimisce. So that's one point. The Tzimisce and the Sabbat are clearly intended as villains, as enemies to be overcome, tools for the storyteller, rather than realistically intended to be played by the players. That's one thing. Another point is that they are described regularly as being intensely alien in terms of the way they think, cold, inhuman, not even necessarily calculating, just fucked in the head, just very, but not in the way Malkavians are. The closest comparison, I think, would almost be kind of like playing a Cenobite in most cases, you know, from the Hellraiser series. They are a peculiarity. And another point is something I've mentioned before, and that is that Vicissitude is a terrifyingly broad and non-specific, discipline that gives you incredibly broad power to do a massive number of things as long as you have the resources to do it. this is something that can be very readily abused by the players. And I'm saying that now as someone who has actually read a lot more of the disciplines, because frankly, it's a lot easier to, like, read a physical book like this for, like, light reading than it is to read a PDF. I find physical books much more enjoyable to read. It's why I'm honestly learning things about V20 I didn't know, because I can just sit down and spend a couple of hours just going through a physical book. But now that I've read, like, some of a lot of disciplines in Vampire the Masquerade are quite open and have glaring ability, like, glaring places where non-specificity on the part of the creators of the game means that they can be abused. I have yet to run into something that is more, like, seemingly deliberately designed in that way than Vicissitude. Vicissitude is clearly designed in such a way that it allows the storyteller to effectively have the plot device option on, like, half of the described discipline powers, allowing the storyteller to create various bizarre-looking and interesting and unusual enemies in the form of individual Tzimisce or their Schlachter or their Vozd, which, if you don't know, are Tzimisce ghouls. I'll talk about that in the Tzimisce clan video. Which I think is exactly what I said in the ghoul video when I mentioned the Schlachter and the Vozd. But it's not something that should really be in the hands of especially kind of newer or relatively inexperienced players, or people who just aren't super familiar with the setting. Again, it's one of these things where a lot of this comes down to, you could do this, but you would need to have a lot of trust in the storyteller, and the storyteller would need to have a lot of trust in you as a player. You would have to, you know, it has to be very carefully managed. It has to be a lot of trust there. And again, this is where I'm a hypocrite, because I've talked at length in the past about when I played a purely flesh-crafting Tzimisce called Vladislav. But, you know, that was in a campaign that I'd been playing with. That was in a campaign that had been going on for a long time, being run by a long-time friend of mine, whose campaigns I played in multiple times. So basically the exact situation I described, where I trusted him as a storyteller, he trusted me as a player. That's why that worked. Number 2, again, there is no specific order, this is just the order I'm about to write them down in, the Baali. Once again, much like the Tzimisce, too fucking weird. Their mindset is too inherently antagonistic and strange, which makes them difficult to play right from the get-go. Second point, they are universally hated. The Baali are despised by every sect and even the independent clans. I think maybe nope, even the followers of Set hate demons, so yeah, even the followers of Set are likely to kill Baali on sight. The only ones I can think of who might not necessarily kill Baali on sight are, like, nope, the Assamites are super religious, so they'd definitely do it. Basically, maybe the Giovanni, and, like, maybe the Naharaja. Nagaraja? I always say Naharaja, but there's no H in it. I don't know. But maybe them. Otherwise, the Camarilla executes them on sight. The Bruja, not the Bruja, the Anarchs, basically the Bruja, the Anarchs kill them on sight. The Sabbat kill them on sight. Everyone hates them. They are inherently antagonistic to everyone. Yes, they can exist within cities by masquerading as other clans. I think they typically masquerade as members of the Tremere, but really, unless you want to make your campaign kind of half-built around the presence of a secret Baali in your party, or unless the campaign is you are essentially a coven, I don't even think that's the correct word, but a coven of Baali trying to undermine the city, it's gonna be weird. And even if it is, you basically have to design the campaign around them, essentially. You have to design the campaign around the fact that there is one or more Baali in the party. And that becomes kind of the central conceit of the campaign is, oh shit, it's a lot of Baali. That's why you should play the Baali. Next, we have actually the one I've got the most specific notes for, and that is the Gargoyles. The Gargoyles are not necessarily inherently evil, of course. They are, however, they basically fall into two categories, and two main problems. If they are Tremere loyal, they are boring killbots. Because they are mind-controlled slaves with very little personality beyond, yes sir, no sir, I'll kill who you want sir, and that's basically all they are. If they're non-Tremere gargoyles, while gargoyles who are not currently under the control of the Tremere are officially recognized and permitted to live by the Camarilla, which, by the way, is wild that they're shitty about the Nosferatu, but they're going to be like, yeah, alright, to Gargoyles. Then again, the, you know, Convention of Thorns and the first Anarch Revolt was about Gargoyles, so I guess they're kind of almost legally roped into being nice about Gargoyles who escaped the Tremere. If you don't know, the first Anarch Revolt, which is where the Camarilla, the Sabbat, and the Anarchs came from, was essentially sparked when the Tzimisce, Gangrel, and Nosferatu clans realized that they were being hunted by the Tremere, because the way you make a gargoyle is you take a basically the Tremere use horrible evil blood magic to fuse a Tzimisce, a gargoyle, a Tzimisce, a Gangrel, and a Nosferatu into one creature to create a gargoyle who is a slave to them, and it's a horrible thing, so they were actively hunting those clans. They banded together and started attacking the Tremere, which led to just kind of there's a fight going on. You know what? Fuck the Elders! And then the first Anarch Revolt happened. Yeah, so Gargoyles, there's a lot of baggage with Gargoyles. But yeah, so even though they are recognized, if they are free of the Tremere's influence, they are recognized as members of the Camarilla. Number one, the Tremere are going to try and mind control them and basically take control of them anyway, and it's very easy. All they have to do is get one in a room with you, and because of their weakness, you are instantly mind controlled, essentially. If you don't know, their weakness is they are very easy to influence with mind powers. The other issue is that they are even free gargoyles are honestly kind of relatively dull as characters, because whereas vampires obviously have their own long history and then their humanity before that, gargoyles have no memory of the vampires that made them up, obviously no memory of the humans those vampires were, and even a free gargoyle will have spent the vast majority of its time being a slave to the Tremere, and therefore basically having no personality traits other than yes sir, no sir, I hate you sir, you know. And on top of that, if you're playing in the Modern Knights, they basically all have to be elders, because as far as I can tell, they can't sire anyone. I've tried to look into this, I don't, like, it seems that they have to be created via a ritual. I haven't seen anything that says they can sire. I may be missing something obvious, but I'm fairly certain gargoyles have to be created through a ritual. And the Tremere officially, again, this is the Tremere, so it's officially, haven't been allowed to make new gargoyles for centuries, if you're playing in the Modern Knights. So, they would have to be an elder. Which, you know, again, you could play them in an elder game, but there's a lot of, like, caveats, and there's not much you can really do with gargoyles. They're not game-breaking, they're just weird. And they have, essentially, a similar problem to the Baali, where they will kind of dominate the tone of the campaign, or you will have to basically just make a plot around the fact that the Tremere are going to be trying to capture you all the time, if you let a gargoyle in the game. Next, Harbingers of Skulls. Unless you're playing, unless you're playing a Sabbat game, and unless a big part of that Sabbat game is just killing the Giovanni, the Harbingers of Skulls, it's kind of difficult to explain why they would be involved. If you don't know, the Harbingers of Skulls are what's left of the Cappadocian clan. Although I think based on lore of the clan's Giovanni, it is implied that maybe some of the Harbingers of Skulls could actually basically just be Giovanni from before Augustus Giovanni ate Cappadocius. So they could also technically be Giovanni, but essentially they are the angry, hateful remnants of the Cappadocians, and their sole motivation is getting revenge on the Giovanni. They're not like mindless monsters, but they are very one goal: kill the Giovanni, and that's essentially all they want. That's it for the Harbingers of Skulls. The Salubri. The Salubri are in kind of a similar place. Honestly, depending on if you want to build your campaign around the presence of a Salubri, again, it's kind of hard to explain what they would be doing with the party, because if you don't know, the Salubri are the clan that the Tremere basically consumed in order to become vampires. And the Tremere have been actively hunting down the Salubri for centuries now. They've convinced the entire Camarilla to actively hunt down the Salubri. And unless you're playing kind of there are some crazy violent Salubri who work for the Sabbat, if memory serves. Unless you're playing them, who are the minority of the Salubri, to my knowledge, the Salubri are either actively being hunted by the Tremere, or by the entire Camarilla, if anyone knows they're a Salubri, or they are working on increasing their own humanity quietly and peacefully so they can achieve Glaconda, because they are one of the clans that is explicitly described as they're one of the few clans that's described as not caring about the jihad, not caring about vampire politics, and they actually fucking mean it. They are just kind of seeking enlightenment on their own terms. So, again, unless you're making a plot about having to save, or like the party having to protect the Salubri from the Tremere, or having kind of a paranoia thing of, oh, does anyone know? Unless that's kind of a major conceit of the campaign, the Salubri would essentially just be on their own in a corner working on their humanity in most cases, rather than actively getting involved in Camarilla or Sabbat politics, or Anarch politics, which, you know, if at least for me, the politics is like a huge part of why I enjoy Vampire, so they're useful as plot devices. Honestly, all of these guys are useful as plot devices. I've literally had a plot with actually my Tzimisce character, where because he predated the Convention of Thorns, he predated the Tremere, he knew that, because he was an elder, he knew that the Salubri weren't evil, so there was a point where my coterie in that game were protecting a Salubri from discovery. They are useful as plot points. They're not useful as player characters. And the final one on this list of this hastily constructed video is the Blood Brothers, who are a clan that are a bloodline, I should say, that I routinely completely forget exists. Because they are basically they're basically like slightly better shovelheads. And that's it. And when I say slightly better, I mean they're slightly better as in they're slightly better in being used as cannon fodder, because they have no thoughts in their heads other than Sabbat, obey, not Sabbat, kill. They are a group of them are all made at the same time. They all look exactly the same as each other. They're all literally basically brain dead and can only think about violence or serving the Sabbat. They have no personality other than violence. They are I have never seen it baffles me that they're not just a footnote in, like, the Tzimisce clan description or something. Because they are basically just mooks. That's all they are. Personalityless, identical, violent, stupid mooks. I literally, when I was setting up my vampire game, one of the fucking players said, ooh, maybe I want to play a Blood Brother. And I told him to shut the fuck up, because number one, it's a Camarilla game, and number two, the only reason I think you would ever want to play a Blood Brother is if you are in a campaign that is almost exclusively about the combat, and if you're playing a vampire game for the combat, you're probably playing Vampire wrong, because the combat ain't that complicated, and it's really not the point. I recently described on Reddit, and a Reddit comment, when someone was like, why are all the vampires so, like, so squishy? I basically described that vampire is, you are the undead Illuminati, and it's all about conspiracies, and fighting is generally the last option. Not because you're not willing to be violent, but because of how risky it is. And, yeah, so vampire combat is relatively simple and very lethal, so playing Blood Brothers is basically just shackling yourself to that combat system and nothing else outside of that. So, don't play the Blood Brothers. And the last point is, little honourable mention, is you should not play the Ravnos. Because I fucking hate the Ravnos. Okay, I know this video wasn't great. It's not what I was planning on doing next. I was planning on doing the Tzimisce, but I keep putting it off. I promise you this. In the near future, in less than 3 months, I will make the Tzimisce video. Because my plan right now is to finish reading Lore of the Clans, get to the Tzimisce, or at least get to the, like, Tzimisce section. which... God, is it the last fucking... Are they the... No, they're not the last clan. Yeah, of course they're not the last clan. I'm like, I think I'm like 2.5 clans away from them. Because I'm currently reading the Ravenos, and I think it's just the Toreador and the Tremere between me and the Tzimisce. But I'm gonna get to that, and then I'm gonna write my fucking notes about what I want to talk about in the video. So I will get to the Tzimisce. And then, because I've got more of the clans, you know, I've got specific reference material, it'll be a lot easier for me to talk about all the other individual clans in V20. I will also say, I will also ask, is anyone interested in occasional videos of me talking about my Vampire the Masquerade campaign? I genuinely don't know if that's something you guys would be interested in, because it's not like an old story that I'm remembering from a while ago. It is like stuff that's happening right now, you know? Like, I run this game every Thursday. It was Wednesdays. I've played 2 sessions of this fucking game this week, because it was suggested at the end of the game on Wednesday this week, that one of the players could play it on a Thursday, and then we could, like, he has to be up for work the next morning, when we play it on a Wednesday, and he suggested we could play it on Thursdays, if you guys are free, because then I'm not at work the next day, so we can just keep going until we're sick of it. To which we all said, yeah, definitely. Change the date to Thursdays, and then one of us said, as a joke, so, vampire tomorrow? And then I just realized, I've still got a lot of notes that you guys didn't get to. I mean, we could play vampire tomorrow, so we ended up playing 2 sessions of vampire, back to back, 2 days in a row. But yeah, if you guys are interested in hearing about my campaign, let me know, and I may very well do videos on that. I will tell you this, Mastiff is a major NPC. my old Malkavian is a major NPC. And it's also not set in, you know, one of the preset, you know, Chicago by night, LA by night, New York by night. It's not set in that. It's set in a fictional city that I created called Skelwich, with a fictional kind of court, a fictional selection of characters that I created, including the Prince Michael Armistice, a terrifying sheriff named the Sheriff, who is a 7-foot-tall Nosferatu with at least 6 dots of La Sombra powers, and the, other fucking wild shit. A fucking 5'3" Nosferatu called Kyle who wears a Hawaiian shirt. You know, I would enjoy talking about it, is what I'm saying. And once again, I will remind you, if you want to help me complete my Vampire the Masquerade collection, there will be a link to my PayPal in the description, just saying. Also, if you are interested in hearing me talk about kind of vampire in a even less guided form than this, just going off on long tears about lore, please, there are links on my channel to the Lazy Turbo Owl YouTube channel. I will also, if I remember, post a link to my Twitch in the description, where I have been streaming VTMB, Final Nights mod, and I will be doing more Vampire the Masquerade mods in the future on there. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, but that's it from me for now. I will catch you all sooner than I did after the last time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye!